me matarás. Júrame, miénteme, pégame, mátame si quieres, pero nunca me dejes. Yo no quiero que me dejes, nunca jamás.
No me niegas tu querer.
Te quiero por el modo
¿En qué me hablas tú?
tu voz es como brisa que toca tu pelo y desliza sobre tu piel.
Te vas porque sé que no me quieres. Piénsalo bien porque me matarás. Júrame, miénteme, pégame, mátame si quieres, pero nunca me dejes. Yo no quiero que me dejes, nunca jamás.
No me niegas tu querer.
Te quiero por el modo
¿En qué me hablas tú?
tu voz es como brisa que toca tu pelo y desliza sobre tu piel.
Te vas porque sé que no me quieres. Piénsalo bien porque me matarás. Júrame, miénteme, pégame, mátame si quieres, pero nunca me dejes. Yo no quiero que me dejes, nunca jamás.
No me niegas tu querer.
Te quiero por el modo
¿En qué me hablas tú?
tu voz es como brisa que toca tu pelo y desliza sobre tu piel.
Te vas porque sé que no me quieres. Piénsalo bien porque me matarás. Júrame,
Te quiero por el modo
¿En qué me hablas tú?
tu voz es como brisa que toca tu pelo y desliza sobre tu piel.
Gigi, can you hear me? Hello?
Te vas porque sé que no me quieres. Piénsalo bien porque me matarás. Júrame, miénteme, pégame, mátame si quieres, pero nunca me dejes. Yo no quiero que me dejes, nunca jamás.
No me niegas tu querer.
Te quiero por el modo
¿En qué me hablas tú?
tu voz es como brisa que toca tu pelo y desliza sobre tu piel.
All right. Hi, Lori Jean.
Good morning. Well, it's not morning, it's noon ish.
Good afternoon-ish.
Good afternoon. Yeah. Where did Mr. Westbrook go?
I'm not too sure, but I'm sure he'll come back.
We'll just wait
So,
for him here.
yes. So, so we have a little time for some cheese man. You got any cheese man, Lori Jean?
Well, it is Cinco de Mayo, and there's awesome performances all over the
Can
place.
you imagine? I know. And you know, I totally forgot until I was, of course, rushing to Walmart just a little while ago. And I rush in and there's some Spanish music going on. I'm like, yeah, we should do this every day, right?
Yeah.
And then this lady just rushes over to me and hands me a whole bunch of Mexican candy. I'm like, no, okay.
You
Fine.
twisted my arm.
If you insist. If you
That's so
insist.
funny. Like, like when you're here in Corpus, they have a west side and a south side, and every town has, right? Well, the west side HEBs, that's where the fun, like they're so fun. They're always playing loud music on Saturdays and on any random Saturday. So I
Yeah.
can imagine today.
Yeah, Cinco de
yes,
Mayo,
Are we
imagine.
festive.
Oh, yes. Hello, Mr. Paul Westbrook. How are you doing?
I'm fine.
That's
know-
great.
Are we live?
We
Yes,
are
we
live.
are.
Yes, we are.
Okay. Did you lose me for a minute or two?
Slightly.
Okay. You know what happened?
No.
The one guy that hates me, Lori Jean's dad, called me.
Oh, you must have misunderstood. I said, Dad, log in. Paul wants to talk to you.
Oh.
And he
My
called you.
phone messed up everything.
But you're back on. We're good. We're good.
Yes. Incidentally, I love Chilo Garza.
He's a fun guy.
He's a dear close friend of mine. Although at one time he hated me, but I cut his first hit, so he has to love me now.
Well,
All right.
it wouldn't be you and my dad unless there was a little talk, before the show. So perfectly fitting that he calls to mess with you a little bit with his favorite gringo.
Oh, he loves to mess with me, believe me.
Favorite
That is
gringo.
so funny. Excuse me.
So let's introduce our guest, Lori Jean.
Okay.
For those of us out there that do not know who Paul Westbrook is, if you do not know, it's because you're not aware of the beginnings. And here we are to learn about the beginnings of Tejano music. Paul Westbrook was an engineer as now as we know at Falcon Records. That's how I know Paul Westbrook, because he worked at Falcon Records, which my dad and your dad recorded at. Now, every legend that we have talked to goes back and reverts to Falcon Records, right? Where this genre got created. And this is where this man comes into play. And maybe you've never seen his face before, and maybe you've never heard his name before, but this man had a lot to do with the creation of this genre we call Tejano. So we're very honored to have you here, Mr. Paul Westbrook. Um, it is exciting to I'm excited to learn and hear about your place in this creation of this music, because you were one of the ones that were there. So, welcome to our show, and talk to us.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here. And although I know Laurie Jean a lot better because I've actually recorded her, I only met you, Gigi, recently. I think back in January at
Yes.
the Tejano Roots Hall of Fame Awards, and I was honored there. After 60 years, they finally said, "Hey, let's get this guy here." Um, Such an honor. And as I've worked with your dad, Gigi, Juan Guerrero, um, a very, very important part of this Tejano industry. Um, he was before his time. He really oh, did you find out if I recorded ¿Qué más quieres, corazón? ¿Qué más?
The one who would know, and he's probably watching, Beto Garza. Hi, Beto Garza. Love you. He just told me that he watches every show, so love you.
Oh,
He was
wonderful.
like a brother to my dad, and so he's like my tío. But I forgot to ask him that question. But he would remember. He would probably would remember, and he would chime on. He might tell us. Uh, but yeah, ¿Qué más quieres, corazón was one of the big hits.
Yeah, well,
Um,
I keep singing that for all these years, and I don't normally do that unless it really had an impact on me. And I mean, what I remember about Juan is he listened to the groups like the Monkees and the Beatles and all these 60s groups, and he sort of built his genre, his very special genre of Tejano music from all those groups. And at that time, that was pretty a hard thing to do
yeah,
because Mexicanos were not accepted into the um, American market at that time. And Juan and oh my goodness, Roberto Polito, Carlos Guzman, many of these guys that I worked with all sort of worked together to introduce to the world this thing called Tejano music. And, you know, recently I saw you, Gigi, at the local legends breakfast the other day, and we talked about this briefly, that back in the 70s, what we all were doing at that time was um, starting a genre that the world didn't know about. It's so unique. It's Southern Texas, South Texas, and a little bit of North Mexico, uh, and it's just like Tex-Mex food. Tex-Mex music is Tejano.
Yeah.
So it's a very unique genre. It has been a pleasure for me to be a big part of that. I worked with all the old guys, and some of us are still breathing. Uh, I talked to Carlos yesterday. He said, "Be sure to do this and be sure to do that." He always. First, I want to say I owe Carlos Guzman so much because not only um, did we become friends back 60 years ago, he went to work for Falcon Records. And so he was one of the A&R directors. There was 7 A&R men. A&R means artist and repertoire. And Falcon Records had many companies under them, Bago Records, and I don't remember all of them, but there were many. And Carlos, we stayed in touch all these years. You know, if I wanted to know what's going on in the valley, all I have to do is call Carlos, and he knows everybody and talks to everybody probably all the time. So uh, a quick story. You mind's a story?
No, we love stories. All
We
about
love stories. That's what we're about. Now,
Okay.
before you start your story, let's say hi to everybody. And we got lots of comments. Got a lot of people coming in. So let
Okay.
me just address
Yeah.
that real quick,
And
and
the
then
comments are
don't
not
forget your.
popping up.
So here we go.
There we go.
Nena Peña says, awesome. Roxanne Sanchez, heart.
Hi,
Bobby
Roxy.
Castañeda says, good afternoon, Gigi, Lori Jean from California. Hi, Bobby. And Bobby Castañeda says, good afternoon, Mr. Westbrook. Thank you for all of your work over the years in our industry. And
Welcome.
then we've got Cecilio Garza say, payback, bleep, bleep, haha. Saludos, Paulo. Pick up your volume a bit.
I don't use the words anymore that I could use right now.
Norma Salazar says hello, Gigi, la Chicana Guerrero. And then she says hello, Lori Jean. Hi,
Hi,
Norma.
Norma.
Antonio Jaramillo says hello, Gigi and Lori. And Paul Westbrook, God bless you all always. Thank you so much. Same to you. Juan Mendoza, saludos from Tejano TV. And we're going to be on this, whoever is not watching it live, if you're watching us afterwards on Tejano TV, or you can also jump over to our YouTube page. We're on there as well. So thank you. And thank you so much, Juan Mendoza and Lila Lisa Promotions for Tejano TV. Let's see. Norma says hi. Norma says hi. David Villa says hello. David Oakland. Hi from Oakland. And Norma's saying hi to everybody. So thank you, Norma, to saying hi to
Yes,
everybody.
thank you, Norma.
I might have to hire you as my assistant. Vicky V says hello, everyone. And Vicky V says to Norma, hello. So, all right. Thank you, everybody, for watching. I really do appreciate it. Everybody that comes on here. We're excited with all our legends that we have. And today we have Paul Westbrook. And now, if you haven't forgotten your story,
Okay.
go ahead.
Carlos calls me one day and says, Pablo, I want you to go over to such and such hotel on South 10th Street and go over your lines. Go over my lines. What are you talking about? He says, you're going to be in a movie. I said, what? He says, oh, don't worry about it. All you're going to do is sit on a horse and fire a gun. Well, first of all, horses don't like me.
Oh.
They don't like me. They know that I'm afraid of them and they don't like me. And although I'm not a gun man, I think that we should all have guns, political speech. And because I lived in Mexico, we don't want to be like it is in Mexico. We love everybody in Mexico. But anyway, I'll end that political speech. So I go over to this hotel and this actress from New York comes out and says, hello, I'm Maria Guzman. And we're going to go over these lines. Well, I had pages and pages and pages of lines. I don't memorize well. As a matter of fact, I don't memorize at all. Terrible. So I sit there, okay. So reading my lines, and she would read her lines, and we go over this week. What started out being just 1 or 2 day thing turned out to be about a month. Mr. Luis Antonio, oh goodness, here I am having a senior
It's
moment.
okay.
The director of the movie was Maria del Norte, and Mr. Bocanegra wrote the script and the screenplay, and so we shot this movie. They released it, and they ended up, I think, selling it to some Hollywood film company. It's online now, and from that turned out to be another movie called another movie, and then another movie, and another movie. So I ended up being in like 4 or 5 movies. I was a border patrol agent in most of the films, and there are not a lot of gringos in the valley. So
I was going to say, I'm sorry, like they're stereotyping you automatically. You're the border patrol person.
by the way, I totally love our border patrol. Our border patrol is doing the best job they can do under the circumstances. So
So you're trying to tell
God
us,
bless.
Mr. Paul Westbrook, are you trying to tell us that not only are you a brilliant engineer that helped found Tejano Music, you're also a movie star?
Well, I'm a star, that might be. But yes, I was in several films. I didn't get paid for any of those, by the way.
Oh,
But nobody does down here. I think Maria Guzman was paid well to come from New York to do the film. But I was hired to do several commercials. I did a Renaissance hospital commercial. I was a doctor that was teaching students in that. You could see
doctor.
maybe 2 seconds in the commercial, but I was paid for that. I was paid to do a lawyer commercial. I was in a courtroom with a female attorney, and I was paid for that one. I had to go to Brownsville to shoot that. I was paid for a bank commercial here in McAllen, and a Stars Drive-In. I was in a truck with my actress wife, which very, very sweet lady from the Rio Grande Valley. And so I was paid for several commercials, and thank God for that. But Lord knows I'm not an actor.
So it started with Carlos Guzman asking you for one shot of
Yeah.
being on a horse.
Yeah.
All right. Now I'm going to show you some pictures and you're going to tell me about this. Tell me what you think about this.
Oh my goodness. Who is that?
What do you mean, who is that? Can you see?
Well, it's very small on my phone. And
Oh, it's small on your
Wow.
phone. That's right.
Yeah.
You're seeing it on your phone. So it says Falcon Records. It's like on an Aztec calendar in the middle.
I
And there's
recognize the logo and all that, but the man, who is the man?
well, that looks like Nano Ramirez Sr., if I'm not mistaken, because he was our mayor for many years of Mission,
Well,
Texas.
that might have been Mr. Ramirez. And by the way, quick story.
I don't believe you anymore. I don't believe you anymore. Quick story.
When I
Go on.
first came to the Valley, this is after I had had a studio in Cleveland, Mississippi when I was much younger. My first wife and I were living in a house there in Cleveland, and I had a studio. Recorded many Southern soul bands and that kind of stuff. Then went from there to Meridian, Mississippi, and opened a barbecue business with my parents. My wife and I operated it. My parents helped finance it. And while in Meridian, Mississippi, I met Hartley Peavy, which was the owner of Peavy Electronics. And I had always been interested in electronics. I had built projects at home or whatever. And so meeting up with Hartley, I would, in the late afternoon, I would take a 6-pack of beer and go over to PV Electronics after they would shut down. And Hartley and I and some of the other engineers would sit around and talk and drink beer and visit. And so that even it made me more interested in that kind of stuff. I started buying parts from him to build my own little consoles and projects that I wanted to do. And Hartley and I stayed friends all these years. We've seen each other at several trade shows in New York, Las Vegas, LA, wherever that we would be at a trade show together. And so after Meridian, I moved to the Valley. I had family down here. And so my wife said, you really need to find a job. So, I started looking in the Yellow Page, and I looked under studios, and I saw a recording studio. It was Jimmy Nichols. Do you guys remember that name?
Yes, my dad mentioned that you and that studio with Jimmy Nichols, who he said Jimmy Nichols was awesome, like just a real cool guy, he said.
He was a wonderful gentleman and had nice equipment, but understand at that time, our limit was about 4 tracks. If you had 8 tracks, boy, you were in high cotton, So at that time, I think Joey Lopez in San Antonio had 4 tracks. The big studios just weren't around at that time. So anyway, I went over to see Jimmy Nichols, and we became friends immediately. And I said, I'm really looking for a gig. Anybody looking for an engineer? And he says, you should really go talk to Mr. Ramirez at Falcon Records. He's over on 23rd Street. Okay. So I go to 23rd Street, and there was a record shop on one side and then the offices on the other. So, of course, I went to the offices. Melva, she's now married to Carlos Guzman.
Oh.
Melva was the receptionist there. And I said, I'd like to see Mr. Ramirez. And she said, okay, he's in a meeting right now. I said, okay, well, I'll be glad to wait. So I sat down and waited for maybe an hour. I gave up. I said, look, I really have other things I need to do. I'll come back some other time. And Melvin was very nice. And so good looker too. And, then I did other things. I came back like the next day or whatever, same thing. Mr. Ramirez is in a meeting, So I waited around. I went there 4 times. Same thing. The last time I went, I said, Melvin, would you tell him that I design and build recording consoles? The door opened. And I went back to Nano's office. Didn't meet the old man yet, but I met Nano, the son. And we talked for hours. Now, Nano, most of you that know Nano, you don't get hours with Nano. I mean, he was a very busy man. He took me out to Benson Road to show me this big, wonderful building that they had purchased from Paulino Bernal.
Wow, I know where this is going. That's so cool.
Paulino had built this studio on this property, and it had a little house out in front of it. That was a direct copy of Ray Charles' studio out in California, in Orange County, California. direct. I mean, boy, they went out there and measured everything, made it the same.
Wow.
And when Nano took me in there and showed me that big tall ceilings, big control room, they didn't even have glass between the control room and the studio. I looked at all this and said, Mr. Ramirez, I'm going to work for you. He says, you are? I said, yep. I said, this is my dream.
Aw.
Wow, that is so cool.
Later on, I said, look, give me a key to the building. Give me a charge account at Rio Radio. Y'all remember Rio Radio?
I don't actually, but yeah, go ahead.
Well, it was the big electronics place in McAllen at the time. They had everything.
It was like the Radio Shack.
Oh, my goodness. 1,000 times more than Radio Shack.
Oh yeah.
Wow,
It was
that's so
big.
cool.
I mean, they had business from Mexico like you would not believe. I mean, it was the place to get anything electronics. Anyway, so give me the key to the place. Give me a charge account. I'll go in here, work for free. I'll hook up run all the wires for the headphones, for the microphones. They didn't have anything. They just had this beautiful building that just stopped,
Wow.
and they were waiting on me. So I did that. I went in there and worked for maybe, I don't know, 3 or 4 weeks, and wired the place up, and then invited Mr. Ramirez and Nano to come out. They came out. I showed them what I had done, and Mr. Ramirez says, "Okay, Paul." He's very, very great man. Great man. He says, how much do you want to be able to work or to be with us? And I said, well, Mr. Ramirez, I have to have $125 a week. I have to have that much to pay my bills. He says, okay, you got it. So go to work. The first paycheck came, and it was less than $125 a week. I said, what's the deal, Lucille? So I go into Mr. Ramirez's office, and of course you had to almost have an appointment, but they loved me a lot. I could just go to the door and knock, and they'd say, come on in. So I said, Mr. Ramirez, I got my first check, but it's less. Oh, well, the way they figured it in bookkeeping was in a month, there's 4.3 weeks. And that works out to be a little bit less. I said, Mr. Ramirez, I got to have at least $125 a week to pay my bills. Oh, no problem. Their answer to me was always no problem, because they were getting a well of a deal anyway. I mean, of course, $125 a week back in the 60s was not bad, but I would have paid them to let me work there if I could afford it.
Yeah, but I'm sure your wife would not have agreed to that.
No.
Your first wife.
Linda Ann would not accept that. That's not part of the deal. By the way, I have two beautiful daughters. They're both living up in the Fort Worth and Dallas area, Arlington, and they have wonderful husbands, very hardworking husbands. My youngest daughter has her own business. She does microblading, when you
yes.
DFW microblading, I think it is. And they're all very successful, and thank God for that, and my oldest daughter, we talk quite often. She's married to a man that is the master of many things. He does. He works for American Airlines in the security department. He has hundreds of apartment rentals that he oversees and does that stuff. Anyway, love my daughters. I have 5 grandkids and 2 great grandkids. So
Wow, that is
Well, if they're
love them all.
watching, hello
wonderful.
to everybody, and
Yes, hello to your
to
beautiful
all your family.
family.
You've got a great guy here, and
Yes,
yes,
and
very
JJ,
talented.
we have a lot of comments. I don't know if you
Yes, we
can read
do.
those. Take a
Let
moment and read those.
Yes, if you could, let's pause for a little bit, Mr. Westbrook. Hold on. So Cecilio Garza says, "Not to worry, Paulo. It's okay to forget, not to remember. Were you a racist border patrolman?" Question mark. Alex Barreal says, Cecilio Garza, saludos. Lori Maldonado says, saludos, hello. And Norma is greeting everybody. Thank you, Norma. Thank you and hello, Lori. Daniel Garcia says, good morning. Lori says, hello, Norma Salazar. Bobby Castañeda has Mr. Westbrook. I love this question. Do you know, because I want to know too, do you know whatever happened to the archives of the Fanfarria Falcon show? Good
I do.
question.
I do.
Yes, do tell.
The Ramirez family, I think a lot of that was left to Marco. And um, several years back, my friend, um, give me a second, having one of those senior moments
It's
again.
okay. I have them all day long.
Uh, he was the guitar player for Fabulosos Cuatro for a long time. And he also worked for Philip Morris. He was a rep. He made lots of money selling cigarettes. Oh my goodness. Somebody help me here.
Oh, I wish Shorty was watching. Shorty would know the guitar
Shorty
player
will
for
watch later, probably.
yeah. Uh so while you're thinking about it, Alex Vidal says shout out to Paul Westbrook. Met him at the breakfast. Nice man. My sister Mary Lou. Hello. Juan Mendoza Jr. says need to meet Mr. Westbrook and pick his brain. Yes, he'll be available, I'm sure. Bobby Castañeda. Carney Fuentes. Yes, Encarnación
Oh,
Fuentes.
Arnie.
Oh my
Yes.
goodness.
Yes,
Antonio
No,
Carney
everybody. Arnie,
Fuentes.
look,
Yes.
Wait,
Jay, thank
Connie,
you, guys.
Thank you, guys.
Connie
Yes.
passed
Cecilia
away a
says
couple
Carney
years
Fuentes.
ago, and
Yes, he did.
he
Carney,
was
Carney.
deeply loved and missed, and he was a good man. Anyway, Carney bought all those videotapes, and I had talked to Carlos Guzman about, hey, why don't we try to buy those, or I think the world needs to see those
Yeah.
programs again because they were very high quality. First of all, they were shot on 2-inch videotape with this machine that's 4 times bigger than I am, and they just all the groups that played on there looked great. They sounded great. Remember, that's when they would wear uniforms.
Yes, we've talked
Everybody would
about
be
that,
dressed the
Lord.
Outfit.
same.
That
Oh,
would be
it
incredible
was
to
a
see
wonderful.
Yes.
those. Wow.
Anyway,
So would love to see that.
uh, after any videotape or audio tape goes through so many years, it deteriorates. And you have to take the tape and bake it. Now, what that means, you actually take this big, heavy roll of 2-inch tape and you put it in an oven and you heat it up to a certain temperature to bring it back to life.
What? That is unheard
Wow.
of. I would be
And
afraid to burn it. How do you?
yeah, and to do that, well, you don't turn it that hot, but I think it
Wow.
maybe 250 degrees or something. I've never done it, but I've been told about it. Anyway, Carney sent some of those tapes to California to a company that specializes in that. And of course, by the time you pay them to do it, oh my goodness, it cost a lot to do that. It's very time consuming and everything. So he never did it, but he and I talked about that many times, as well as other people in the industry that I would talk to and say, hey, Carney has these tapes and we should really, you know, if there's anybody that's got deep pockets out there that would like to be able to revive the Fanfaria Falcon show.
Oh
And
my goodness.
years and years of Mr.
Wow.
Ramirez as the main announcer and the star of the show. And then Carlos Guzman took that over, and he was the main guy, of course, still working for Mr. Ramirez. And it was a wonderful, wonderful show. And I just want to say real fast, I worked for the Ramirez family for several years. Marco Ramirez was Nano's little brother. He was my remote control for the first couple of years. In other words, he'd sit back at that tape machine and he would push play, record, rewind, all that kind of stuff. But he was watching, he was paying attention. So we worked together, and Marco was my best buddy. You know, we just we hung out together. We cooked fajitas together. We drank beer together. We did all these things. And there's some things we did going south of the border I can't talk about.
That's another show.
That's another show. We always say that's for another show.
The other one.
That's the X-rated show.
Whoa,
I'm not that person anymore. And while we're on that subject, I want to say, during my first year or so at Falcon, I was not a nice guy. I had an ego the size of a building. We were cutting all these hits, and the mistake that comes with that is you start believing what people tell you. And I want to say to anybody out there, I look right in the camera when I say this, if I ever said or did anything to offend you, I'm sorry. Please forgive me.
All right, you heard it,
That
folks.
is
If at any time Mr. Paul Westbrook offended you, he has formally apologized.
And I
And
think
with-
we should probably insert you and my dad meeting right in the middle of that, because you know he's pretty outspoken. So
You want to tell that story, Lori Jean?
no, you tell it.
Let's
tell
pause.
it.
Let's wait. Let's pause and let's look at some of the comments.
Okay.
Lori Maldonado says, "I'm the first female Tejana sound engineer inducted into the Tejano Roots Hall of Fame, class of 2017, making history. As of now, there are only 2 females inducted in this category." Well, congratulations, Ms. Maldonado.
That is
Wow,
awesome.
that is
Yes.
awesome. We're proud of you.
Yes.
Thank you. Yes. Bobby Castañeda says Carney also had Tejano Classics online selling CDs.
Yeah.
Eddie Garza says hello to everyone.
Hi, Theo Eddie.
Hey, Eddie.
And Alex Fidel says, if anyone on here has a DAT machine, let me know. You need one to put a DAT tape and transfer it to CD MP3. And then Juan Mendoza Jr. says, I would love to have some of that old footage on Tejano TV. That's exactly what I was thinking, because Tejano TV has a classics channel. And a lot of those old, I don't know, where do you get them, Mr. Mendoza? I've been wondering, is it people that have recorded their own stuff? Like we never recorded our dad coming on TV. So I wonder if any of those were actually somebody has those, recorded them
I
on
think
their
this
own.
would be in a different category. This is beyond classic. This would be
Oh yeah,
like
this is
vintage. Like this, that's
yeah, beyond
amazing
classics,
to have
definitely, for sure.
something
Yeah,
crazy.
beyond that.
Awesome. That should be archived like in the universities and stuff.
I know, definitely, for our history, which is Mr. Paul Westbrook, that we've been talking about, that this genre is so unique to our culture. And you being not exactly Mexican, I'm gonna say,
but a witness to a lot of
Mexicano in mi corazón.
There you go. So, you know, we've spoken of this. Lori and I are both teachers. How this really needs to be part of history and literally in our own history books, because we are not taught this. And our identity, as far as who we are of Mexican heritage. It's there, we can't deny it. And but we're also American culture. We're, Coca-Cola and rock and roll. We That's who we are as well.
Mhm.
So and you were witness to that melting of that together of what was then, as you said, there was the Mexican music only, now being combined
Mhm.
with the influence, which was the Beatles, the Monkeys. My dad loved the Beatles and the Monkeys. By the way, my name is actually Griselda from a song from the Monkeys called Auntie Griselda. My dad named me. My thing, my
Yeah, that is
initials are
so
Gigi.
cool. And I love
Yeah.
that you said that, Mr. Paul. You said that like the music of the Tejano music, or the before it was called that it wasn't completely accepted. Like for Mexicanos to be singing in English wasn't completely accepted, but then also they weren't for Mexico, and that influence. You mentioned something that, in general, when people study the valley, they say, it was far enough from Mexico. And this goes back to when it's first developed. Here's my little favorite thing to talk about. When the valley is first settled, it's so far from Mexico, like actual Mexico. And it's also far from like where San Antonio was developing and other places. And we're talking late 1700s, early 1800s. It developed its own culture. and
Yes.
and it started in the little ranches, and it from there it still continued. Fast forward to what you're talking about. When you come in and you hear this coming in from Mississippi, I know you had a culture shock. And you were able to observe that this is different here. It's not Mexico,
Yes.
that it's not the United States. It's its own culture. And from there, even still today, the fine arts programs develop their own style. They kind of make their own thing with the music. And I love that you said that. Gigi and I keep bringing it up, but it's its own style. It wasn't a category yet. And I love that you brought up food. Yeah, because even the food in the valley is
Oh my! Our food
way
is
amazing.
our Tex-Mex is accepted worldwide now. If we go into any
Yes.
Mexican restaurant, we look at the menu, and do we see tacos and carne guisada? And if they don't have carne guisada, they don't have Tex-Mex.
That's another show.
And
Food.
my
Dr. Gigi,
goodness,
I've talked to you about that. Yeah, we always, with my dad, we always have food. And Mr. Westbrook, I met you at Don Chilo's. We
yeah,
have food and music, and the pachanga begins there, and that goes back generations before the building was there. Like,
which is a good introduction to my next story.
okay.
The
Pause real
Beatles
quick.
are the story.
Pause. Bobby Castaneda says, I also used to watch the Sally Pimenta show. I don't remember that show, but hey, if it's out there, somebody bring it up, please.
Yes.
Juan Mendoza Jr. says, a lot came from YouTube that I can get a hold of. Some people have footage, but want to charge tens of thousands to sell their VHS tapes. Okay. Tina Martinez says, hello. All right. On with your story, Mr. Westbrook.
Okay. I was producing at the time, I don't know, maybe this was 6, 8, 10 years ago. Uh, um, my good friend Rolando Garcia Jr., which he is Country Roland Jr. Now, Country Roland was his dad back in the 70s. I recorded some of their first hits, and I think they went on to Hacienda then, and Rick Garcia or whoever was there continued with them. By the way, Rick Garcia, wonderful engineer, great friend. I love you, guy. Um,
We had him on the show. Yeah, great guy. He
yeah,
was brilliant
he
guy as well.
he he is doing so many wonderful things now in this whole industry. Please follow him, check him out. He's a great guy, great guy. Anyway, so I was producing Country Roland Jr. At that time. He was still playing nightclubs and everything, sometimes on the weekends. And so he invited us out to see him at Don Chilo's. Well, Don Chilo's is a place that you have to experience like no other. It is an experience. When you go there and spend time there, you just want to stay there. And
You're gonna make me cry. Who cries over a cantina? I do, because it was my grandpa's cantina.
it's just a little joint that has so much
Heart.
love and heart and it's just got love for all people. You're in the wintertime, you're gonna see gringos
Yeah.
and Mexicans and everybody together dancing, having fun, drinking, eating.
Wow.
And it's
Yeah.
and it's a lot of respect. You don't hear a lot of F-bombs dropped and filthy language. It's just good people.
Because it's a family place.
It's a family place.
Good,
And
good music,
so-
good food. Sorry,
Yeah.
to-
I'm gonna get to that. So I go out there and we pull up and I say, oh my goodness, you know. So we go in, and as soon as you walk through those doors, it everything changes. It's like you leave this world and go into this other world, and it's just a very comfortable, very pleasing world to be in. Well, we sit there, and Rolando Garcia, Country Rollin' Jr., was playing with his 3 or 4 piece band. And this guy comes up to me and looks up like that, and he's got a beard, and I didn't recognize, didn't know who he was, because back in the 60s, Chilo Garza was pretty boy. He was good looking guy. I mean, I ain't gay. he was a good looking man. I mean, one of the best looking men. I think him and Eddie Olivares would run a contest. They were both good lookers in the Tejano music.
My mom had his albums too. So anyhow.
So he says, you don't know me. You don't recognize me. And I said, no, I'm sorry, I don't. He said, I don't know whether I can say this. You pinche gringo. Can I say that?
Yes,
you already did.
You can bleep it. I don't know if it's a bad word. Here, Juan Hinojosa and Shorty Hinojosa taught me all the bad words. I don't use those words anymore. So anyway, I said, no, I'm sorry. He says, you recorded our first hit and you argued with me. You said that it was too fast. And at that time, the group was Los Casinos and the lead singer was Roberto Polito. And of course, I still didn't recognize, put it together, because it had been many years since I'd been back to down here in part of all this. And he says, yeah, you sit there and argue with me. And I called up Nano. I said, hey, Nano, this gringo, he's telling me this and that. And Nano said, no, this guy's real progressive. You need to listen to him. He's real progressive. Okay. Then we go on and we slow it down a little bit because Roberto Polito was having a hard time putting all the lyrics in because it's a lot of lyrics. And when you have a lot of lyrics and so much song, they got to say the lyrics so fast. Sometimes it loses some of the feeling.
Wow, that's encouraging to me because I have that problem.
So anyway, we slowed it down, did it, recorded it. They took it to Mel Villarreal. At the time, they were recording on Mel's label, I think. And Mel said, oh man, this is a hit. This is a hit. I love it. So at that time, so anyway, that night at Chilo's, you know, Chilo bought me a beer, I think, and he said, "Hey, I want you to listen to my daughter. She's a good singer. I want to record
Oh.
her. I want to record more hits like we did back in the '60s." So I think that night that Laurie Jean got up and sung during Roland's break, and man, I'll tell you what, you are a good singer, young lady, and
Oh, yes, she
you
is.
really, you really I understand where you're at now. I know you're a teacher, a wonderful teacher. You're a mom. You're a wife. Uh, you've been there and done that. And in order to become a singer today, you got to give all that up
Mm-hmm.
because you got to devote your life to this business if you're going to do anything. Think of Selena. She devoted her life to be a singer, and she did a wonderful job. God rest her soul.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Well, it means a lot that you say that, like that. That's so sweet, and I appreciate that you say that so much. And those were the years I hadn't remarried yet when I met you. I was waitressing and teaching and single momming and all of that stuff. And then after I met you, we recorded with you, and then I moved to Corpus, and then I became a cheer coach and a tennis coach and a football mom, basketball mom, and that's kind of, yeah, that's another story. I think I'm done with that. I think we're in another chapter going on, but that was amazing meeting you there, and that was Grandpa's cantina. Chilo was my grandpa, Cecilio. My dad is Junior, so we're there. They renovated that cantina that was from the 60s. They kept all the wood and the tin and the aluminum, and they restored it, cleaned it up, and used it again. And that's why it felt that way, because it's a lot of history,
It did. It
a
does
lot of
have
art.
that feel. It did have that feel. I was there maybe once or twice, but it did have that feel of welcome home, right? Like,
Yes, but thank you
yeah.
again, Mr.
and
Westbrook.
Garza sit there and worked, and then what was the other uncle?
Hector, Tito, the
Heck, yeah,
commander.
did all the cooking. Oh my goodness,
Oh,
they
yes.
fried catfish on Friday nights that oh to die for. It was just so good. Are they ever going to open again? Or
Well, when COVID happened, and everyone's getting up in age, and having a business, like, it's all consuming. We all worked there. We did, my mom, my uncles, my dad, we were there, and, they had a couple other people that would help. But I don't think it will open again. But
Well,
we have a lot of great memories.
after this promo, it might have to reopen again.
We had so many people that become like family, like you mentioned, people would come in that never met, and they're still friends. We see them on social media.
Mhm.
They're still friends. That's why there was a lot of heart there, a lot of history.
Yeah.
So, Bobby Castañeda, by the way, Bobby Castañeda is watching us live on YouTube, and I get the comments from YouTube. So thank you, by the way, Bobby, for watching through YouTube, because that just started at like 2 weeks ago, and we want to hope to build that up. So his question, great question: did you record Los Fabulosos Cuatro? And if so, how was that experience recording such a progressive group? Great question.
Yes. As a matter of fact, Juan Hinojosa and Shorty Armando Shorty Hinojosa were my first call musicians at the studio. Anytime some singer would come in from out of the country or wherever, I would call them to play on the session because, first of all, they were the best of the best. And Shorty and I are still friends today. As a matter of fact, Rita and I have been up to visit Shorty and Yolanda, and we're like all buddies. We go out and eat together. Yolanda and Rita go to the Goodwill store and stay for hours. We just and Shorty and I are doing some production things now. We're gonna Shorty's still got a lot of Fab Four stuff he wants to do and release. Um, excellent musicians. And again, Juan, of course, was the one that was mostly that taught me the bad words, but Juan Hinojosa was. I was a drummer. I played drums when I was young, and the top of my mountain was playing with Roger Miller that had out many hits, but I started playing with him whenever he was like early in his career. So although he had 4 big hits out in the top 100 at the same time, or maybe top 20, the money was not coming in yet, because, you know, with any artist, when they're new artists, money doesn't start coming in for at least a couple of years. And then, of course, the record companies charge them back for everything. And they say, wow, I didn't know I spent that for those rooms and for that bus. And so it's a whole part of the business is sort of ugly. And I've seen that. And I feel sorry for all these guys. Anyway, so where was it? I got on a tangent.
So you worked with Chore and Juan Hinojosa, and
Yes.
you worked with Fabulosos Cuatro. Now
Yes.
they were they are, I would say I consider it the Tejano creation. I don't know if anybody else has used this, but this was kind of like the Renaissance. I consider it like the Renaissance because the Tejano was being created, and you had some groups using the whole orchestra sounds, the calapitos, and then you had the keyboards coming in and that progressive sound, and and Chore, Armando Chore Hinojosa was a big part of that happening,
Absolutely.
along with Paulino Bernal and a lot of those giants, and these guys were the ones that were starting, along with my dad as well. I mean, pretty really combining American music, jazz, and plugging it into Spanish music.
Do you remember? And I believe we first used the Mellotron on Juan Guerrera's stuff. Do you remember a thing called the Mellotron?
I remember my dad mentioning it. Yes.
Okay. Okay. The Mellotron was this keyboard. Now you have to understand this is long before these keyboards that had all these sounds in them. Okay. The Mellotron was, and it was a pretty big thing, very heavy and all. It had, for every note on the keyboard, it had a tape inside that machine that went down, and you pushed that particular key on the keyboard, and that it would play that note. And that note was actually a violin that had been recorded playing that note. Okay. And so as you got lower on the keyboard, it went down to the cellos and the bass violins and all those. Okay. So back then, we were the first studio, I think, anywhere in Texas to get a Mellotron.
That
And
is incredible. I never heard of a Mellotron.
I
yeah,
love that
you can
story.
look it up. And I'll tell you, the artist that made it real famous was oh my goodness, senior moment. I'll think of it in a minute. Anyway, we used that Mellotron when Juan came out. The strings that he used on his early recordings was the Mellotron.
Yes.
Because the keyboards did not have them then. I think back then they had a Farfisa keyboard, but it didn't have strings. And, the strings in the Mellotron were actual recordings of real violins.
Wow, that's before synthesizers.
Incredible.
Yeah. So last week we talked to Oscar Solis, and I asked him because there's a picture of him surrounded by keyboards, and he said, well, you had to, one had one sound and another one had another sound for another song and another sound. So he was surrounded by keyboards before synthesizers came in, and you just program them for the sound that you wanted. Yeah. A quick shout out to Familia Pueblo Promotions. Hi. Thank you for joining us. And then Bobby Castañeda said that was my question about the Mellotron. And Familia Pueblo Promotion says, very interesting. Love hearing history as you're listening to the beginnings of Tejano being created right here. Mr. Paul Westbrook was part of those engineers and that history in the making. Bobby Castañeda says those were very expensive and that the Moody Blues used it a lot.
Yes, Moody Blues.
Interesting.
The keyboard player from the Moody Blues. Years later, I got a phone when I had Westbrook Audio in Dallas. And I'm skipping a lot of history, and we can go back and talk about any of that if you like. But I had this pro audio company in Dallas, and we were one of the top pro audio companies in the nation. And we after Westbrook Audio, I then started consulting and building studios and designing studios for people. And later on, I became the national sales manager for Soundtrax Consoles. And that's a whole story in itself. We don't have to go there, but we can. And then I became part owner of D&R Consoles out of Holland, but I owned half of the company here in the United States. I went to England and then to the Netherlands, Holland, and stayed there for several days. I was really impressed with the way that they did things. Anyway, I became the distributor for DNR. I was with DNR for maybe 25 years. And I had an office in Los Angeles. I had an office in Nashville, New York, Houston, and Dallas, and Conroe. And the Conroe office was actually took care of Houston. And so I get a phone call one day, and this guy with a British accent says, yeah, do you make special deals to special people? And I said, well, I don't know. Who are you? He says, my name is Michael Pender. I said, Michael Pender? That doesn't ring a bell. He says, Moody Blues. Oh, yeah, I've heard the Moody Blues.
Wow.
So he says, I've been hearing great things about these DNR consoles, and I would like to talk to you about getting one. Can you make me a special deal? And I said, well, we've never made special deals to people because we're just not that big of a company. But yeah, I'll be glad to talk to you. Anyway, we became very good friends. Michael ended up buying 3 or 4 different DNR consoles over the years. And he even came to Orange County to the NAMM show one year. And he hung around the booth to be our special artist.
Oh, wow.
For people to meet and greet and talk to and get his autographs, whatever. But Michael was a sweet, nice man, a good family man. Did not seem like the rock and roller type, just a great guy. Anyway, I just saw a few days ago that Michael had passed away. 82 years old, and he will be forever missed. He was just such a nice guy, and
he says yes. That's Cecilio Garza. He says yes.
I don't know if it was on that recording.
Nunca jamás. Yeah, it was on Nunca jamás. So quick shout out to Eddie Olivo. Hi, Mr. Eddie Olivo.
Hi, Mr. Olivo.
Saludos a mis amigas Gigi and Lori y mi buen amigo Mr. Paul Westbrook. Let him know I haven't forgotten about his request to get those pics of the Falcon LP covers. been a bit busy, but I will get to them. Yes. So thank you for that. And thank you for
Thank you.
watching, Mr. Olivo. Yes.
Yes, thank you.
Nena Peña says hello, y'all. Hello. And again, welcome to everybody. I would like to just take this quick time to thank everybody that watches, everybody that tunes in, even if it's not live, when you tune in afterwards. We really appreciate all your support and viewership, because this is something special that we're really doing. We've got some of the most influential people that started this genre called Tejano, and this includes the engineer, Mr. Paul Westbrook, who was at Balcon Records. And so, I mean, and you are for the history books, Mr. Paul Westbrook, and I hope when that history book comes along, I don't know, maybe Lori's the one that's going to write it. We don't know, but you're gonna be one big chapter in there, as far as that as we're concerned, that you were part of the beginnings of Tejano music. And thank you for watching, everybody, and all the group pages that I share too. Thank you for letting me post my show on there. I really appreciate it. We really appreciate it. So on let's just I'm gonna just gonna go through some pictures really quick, Mr. Paul Westbrook.
Okay.
Let me see. You got that one right there.
Yes.
And now you want to tell us who that is?
Well, isn't it Joe?
If I'm not mistaken, is it Joe Bravo?
I think
Maybe.
it's Bravo,
All right.
or it's so small on the screen.
Oh, that's right.
Oh,
Can't see.
that's right.
How about
That's
that?
right.
How
It's-
about do you recognize that guy? No, it's
Yeah. I used to have hair.
I like this picture of you. That really shows you in your element.
Yeah,
Right there.
that's taken in a studio in Laredo, Texas, owned by my close friend, Christian brother, um, and he has a major record company. His name is Luis Gustavo Flores,
Oh yeah.
and he promotes Christian music. He records Christian artists from all over all over the world, but mostly all over South America. And he's got one of the best studios probably anywhere on this planet. He's got the greatest equipment. You can see I'm sitting behind a DNR Octagon, which is about a $200,000 console.
Mm.
That console is in his living room, and his beautiful wife, Ada, would be happy if it would go away. It's taking a big space in the house. But the reason it's sitting in there and not in his studio is because it's too big for the studio. He would have to actually cut out walls and all that.
Oh,
Okay,
wow.
this picture is Vicente Fernandez. My second wife and I, Mariela Perez Westbrook, were living in Mexico for a couple of years. And we went to see many different Mexican concerts. And of course, Vicente was always a favorite of both of ours. Such a great artist. And I took a CD with me that my norteño singer Ray Araiza had written a song for Vicente, and I said, okay, I need to get this CD to Vicente. So Mariela took the CD down to the sound person. The sound person for that concert was a lady, and she says, okay, it's best that you go to the hotel. He's going to be at the Hilton after the concert, and you can see him there. So she and I go to the Hilton after the concert, and we wait around 30, 40 minutes. Vicente comes in. He's got a police motorcycle brigade all around the car and everything. And then he walks in surrounded by his bodyguards, about 4 or 5 guys. And he's walking in like this, just totally drained after 2 hours of singing. And Vicente, it surprised me, he smokes and he drinks tequila. So he would, every couple of songs, he would take a good shot of this tequila and take a couple of hits off the cigarette,
Wow.
and still have that massive, massive voice. And so when he comes in, he's just like this, and he's just totally drenched. I had to touch up his vest because it was totally soaked to make that look nicer for the picture. But and you notice I cut Mariela out of that. I'm sorry, Mariela. I'm with number 3 now. I tell everybody
Number
that
3.
You mean the last one, right? The final,
Yeah.
the final one.
Yeah,
Is beautiful
this is
Rita.
it. No mas.
No more.
Uh,
That's a picture with
well,
you,
let's see.
Chore, and I don't recognize him right off the bat. I don't know if you can see.
That is just a second. One of the 3 singers on the best Tejano recording, in my opinion, I have ever heard in my life. Little Joe and his family, and that's his brother.
Johnny?
Oh, okay.
Is that Johnny?
Yes.
Yeah.
And Johnny and I have stayed friends over the years, many, many years. I don't agree with Little Joe's politics, but that's okay. So now this picture is Roberto Pulido and we're at Ray's Auto Parts every Wednesday night. If it's by invitation only, special people can come there and drink beer and eat fajitas and all that kind of stuff. And Ray Garcia is a wonderful man. He does this.
All right, Mr. Ray Garcia, we'll wait for your invite.
No women.
Now, no women. So,
well, there have been
in your
from the
promo,
press and whatever.
In the promo that I put, that first song, as Lori, I believe, explained to somebody on Facebook, that first song that I chose, it is Los Casinos, but it is actually Roberto Pulido singing with Los Casinos.
I recorded?
Yes, that's what my dad said. It was Nunca Jamás.
Yeah.
That's the one.
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
and that's the one that Chilo and I argued over, I think.
Yes.
Anyway, I think after that, Roberto left the Casinos and formed his own group and went to San Antonio. My good friend Manny Guerra, another wonderful engineer, and he certainly should be in every Hall of Fame to do with this music. He recorded it again with Roberto's new group, and of course Roberto went on to make millions of dollars. You know, he did very well, and Roberto and I are still buddies today. At the Tejano breakfast the other morning, he bought my breakfast. I couldn't believe it. I when I first walked in, I said, "Hey, where's my royalty check? I need my royalty check." And when I went to pay, when we got through and everything, she said, "Oh, that's already paid. Roberto Pulido paid." I said, "Oh my goodness, hallelujah! There is a God."
And this guy right here.
Oh my! I owe so much to Carlos Guzman. He is. I have a Carlos story to tell. We were on tour. He and I flew up to Chicago a few years back. This is back at the height of me working with Carlos and going in business with Carlos. We did a beautiful website. I started promoting. When I came back to the Valley about 15 years ago, the first one I went to see was Carlos. And I said, "Carlos, what's your website?" He says, "Website? What's that?" And I said, "You don't have a website?" And so months and months and months later, we have a beautiful website, second to none anywhere, even out of our industry.
Go ahead and give it a plug. What is it?
CarlosGuzman.com. But that website has changed many times over the years. I I don't even know if, I guess carlosguzman.com is still, you can still get to what we currently have as a website now. When we first put his website up, Carlos said, okay, I want to have a video starting. I want my son, Jorge, to announce me. And so we were all sort of young and dumb and stupid at the time. And I have these developers over in India, or Germany or England or in Bangladesh. I'm currently working with the best I've found over the last 20 years, and he's in Bangladesh. His name is Imran, and he did this beautiful website. He did what we told him to do, but not knowing at the time, which 15 years ago, people didn't have fast internet. They were still using dial-up modems. And so whenever they would go to Carlos Guzman, it would go.
Oh.
And most people would never even wait to see it because everybody's attention span these days is about 5 or 6 seconds.
Yeah.
So anyway, Carlos.
Sorry, I make the face because I think of students. Yes. I'm sorry. Very short attention spans.
Yeah. You have to have a big ruler. So we were on this tour, and I was not a booking agent. I was his manager. I had signed management contracts with him, and that entailed a lot of other things to do with his career and recording and all this stuff. And by the way, I want to mention Mark Salinas. He's a keyboard player now for a local group that does real well. He did a lot of the music for us, and he is a wonderful keyboard player. Some of his best work is, I think it's, I Did It My Way. What's that in Spanish? A mi manera.
A mi manera.
Yeah. And if you ever get a chance to listen to that, it is just absolutely beautiful music that Mark did. And my hat is off to him. I will always be forever grateful to Mark Salinas. He lives here in the Valley. He has a very good job himself. He's a programmer or whatever. And his wife is a pharmacist. Selena makes a bunch of money. They have a beautiful young daughter, and they're just wonderful people. Okay. Now, so we're up there in Michigan traveling. We rent a car after we get off the plane, rent a car and drive over through Michigan and different places. And Carlos had booked 3 or 4 gigs, but his big gig was at some place, and I don't even remember now, but they had this great, it's like a big festival they set up every year, do this for Tejano music, I guess, and anything Mexicano, okay? And so we were scheduled, we were the headliner, and I had put together Carlos's show on CD back in the studio. So we had picked just the songs Carlos wanted. It had this about a 5-minute build up to where the music started kind of low, and then it grew and it grew and grew and grew and grew and kept going, and it just and then close to the end of that, we had this radio announcer, I think from Michigan, somebody that Carlos knew, ladies and gentlemen. And it really just sounded so cool and great. And so we're playing that. Anyway, that afternoon, setting up for the show and everything, getting ready, there's another group from San Antonio. Joe, what's the guy that plays saxophone? Joe, somebody. Oh, I can't think of it. It was, anyway, a group that knew Carlos. They all came up to Carlos and said, hey, Carlos, where's your band? Carlos said, oh, no, Paul takes care of that. And they said, "Oh no, man, you can't use tracks here. This is a big show, you know." Carlos said, "No, no, just take my word for it. Paul's got it taken care of." And so they said, "Well, we know all your songs. We'll be glad to go on and play Joe Posada."
Oh,
You know who that is?
yeah.
Okay, his musicians. Okay, and they were great guys. Okay, and so they went up. They were opening act for Carlos. When Carlos went up, and there was smoke on the stage, and the lights were flashing everywhere, and that heavy music was playing, and then the announcer comes over the speakers, and Carlos walks up, and everybody comes to the stage then, you know, and they got their old 33 and the third albums, you know. Remember, they used to be on vinyl. That's before y'all's time.
No, no, I recall.
Anyway, there, and so Carlos did well. I mean, it was just, and of course, after he got finished, everybody wanted him to sign autographs and take pictures and all that. So there was a line about 50 or 60 people for the longest time, because Carlos always takes time for his fans. He loves his fans. On that trip, we actually went to a hospital where one of his older fans was pretty bad shape and he couldn't make it. Carlos said, "Let's go here. Let's go see him."
Oh, that is so nice.
We went and spent, you know, about an hour there in the hospital room with him. And Carlos is that kind of guy. Okay. So then we make our way, we play these other couple of gigs, and then we go back to Chicago, and we're waiting at the in the airport for our flight, and it comes up they've overbooked, so they only have one seat. Okay. And Carlos says, "You take it, Pablo." No, Carlos, you take it. No, you take it. You go ahead. I can stay here. I'll take the next flight. That's the kind of man, Carlos.
Saludos out to Carlos. We've been calling about him coming on here. You're next, Carlos.
Yes.
Yes.
He's up in Corpus right now, but he'll be ready soon.
Oh yes, I saw him this morning on Domingo Live. They had a live show. Yeah, hello.
Oh, that's right. With that Cinco de Mayo.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they had it for Buck Days. There's Buck Days going on.
So
And
let
they
me go
had-
back real. I'm sorry, Lori.
No, that's fine.
No, it's fine. I was just joking.
No, it's okay. There's a little delay too, so it's okay.
Just addressing the comments. Nena Peña says great music, all of them. Eddie Garza says Robert went in Los Casinos as a saxophone player before singing. Lori Maldonado says, Paul, did you ever work with producer Bob Gallarza?
I don't recognize that name.
Okay. Bobby Castañeda says, how was your transition from analog to digital recording?
Oh my goodness, are you ready for this? Well, this was when I was living in Northeast Texas. Had to be, well, let me see. I've been with this one for 10 years, 5 years. This was probably 20 years ago or more. I was living in Brashear, Texas, which is southwest of Sulphur Springs, Texas. We had like 30 acres, had a metal studio building out there, had a barn for the horses or cows. I was part of DNR at that time. I had a big DNR console in my studio, and I had a radar, 24-track radar unit. I was also a dealer for radar. Several companies in the Valley bought radar units from me. I think that Jesse Cavazos might have bought one. Bobby Polito probably bought one. By the way, Bobby Polito had a DNR console in his studio in McAllen. He bought it from Chuck Webster up in Dallas. He bought it as used. Um, and Chuy Cavazos bought a DNR console for the studio that Duelo owns now, Grupo Duelo. Um, and then he sold that whole complex and everything to Grupo Duelo. So back in my transition, I was an analog engineer. I totally believed in recording on tape and recording through analog electronics. And this digital thing happened. Now, just prior to that, I'll tell you how fast things change. Just prior to that, my phone bill every month was like $1,000 to $1,200. And I was on the phone most of the day with people all over the United States and sometimes outside of the United States if they spoke English. And because I was the distributor for DNR consoles for the whole United States. And of course, I had these offices where people like Bill Pearson had the office out in California. Bill is a composer. His music is in many movies that you hear on TV today or in movies. He's just a wonderful man. Him and his wife Sharon, they've now moved to Arizona. They sold their place in California and got a fortune for it and paid cash for the one in Arizona. And Rita and I have been out there to visit them. Back to the transition. I was staying very busy at the time, and with this 24-track radar unit, it's a computer. It looks like a rack mount unit, but it had all 24 tracks in it, and it had a remote control just like a analog tape machine. It was designed to look like and act like an analog machine without the tape. So everything's going to memory. I want to say this to all you guys watching. Anything that you want to know about analog and digital. Digital is wonderful, but keep in mind, digital is only a sample of analog. So analog is the greatest. Okay.
Wow.
Now,
Good to
the
know.
very best sound reproduction today is phonograph records. Now that's hard to believe, but if you put a compact disc CD player here, you put a 2-track tape machine here, and you put a phonograph record here, and you compare the sound, the phonograph record's going to sound better.
Now, vinyl is making a resurgence. Could that possibly be the reason?
Well, that's
One of the reasons.
reasons, but the main reason is when we went to digital and compact disc downloads, all the record companies started losing money.
Oh,
Yes, I could see
So
that.
billions and billions of dollars went down the drain because unfortunately people steal music.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they do. And I've had friends of mine. I was a software developer for several years. I spent many years developing software programs. And one of the hardest things is to protect your software programs where it can't be stolen. So I spent a lot of time and a lot of money trying to protect my programs. Okay. Well, people do steal. When it's digital, it's just too easy to steal.
It's too easy. Yeah.
And
Let
all
me
the record companies have had, big losses.
let me just address some comments real quick. Felipe Leal has just a question mark. So I don't know what that means. Just in case you're brand new to the show, we are Giras y Desveladas. We talk to Tejano Legend Pioneers about their Giras and Desveladas tours and sleepless nights. And we also get to talk to the pioneers of the Tejano genre. So not too sure what that question mark is, but thank you for watching. Lori Maldonado says Bob Gallarza did produce Little Joe. Yes.
I need to plug my. I'm going to bring the charger, plug my phone in because
Okay.
it's
Perfect.
the
Perfect.
city code.
Perfect.
I'll be right back.
Yes. Bob Gallarza did produce Little Joe as well as many other artists in the industry. Bob spent his first 15 years mainstreaming with the Fifth Dimension. He was from Tacoma, California. Ms.
Mhm.
Maldonado, thank you for all your wisdom that you're sharing here with us today. We really appreciate it. And yes, she says nothing like hands on. Yes, sir, analog, and that we lose money.
Mhm.
And then Felipe Leal says, you skipped my question. Well,
Oh.
I don't know. And by the way, that brings up a very good thing that I need to mention. I can only see the comments that are put on the Gigi La Chicana Guerrero Facebook page. I cannot see any of the comments on any other, and I share out to at least 115 groups, guys. So if you're commenting on through the other group pages, I cannot see them. I can see uh when you're commenting through the YouTube
Mhm.
page as well. So we're on live on YouTube, we're on live on Tejano TV, and we're on live on Facebook. And
Mhm.
I can only see like the comments that are put on and display the ones that
Mhm.
are on
Well,
my
the good thing
page.
is,
So
if we can see this comment by him, maybe you can repost your question if you don't mind, Mr. Liao, and then that
yeah.
way we can get to your question. We'd be happy to get to it. But yeah, try reposting it here, and we'll see if we can get you an
Oh,
answer.
look, I'm scrolling back. I'm so sorry, but you know what? I'm human, you
It's
know.
okay. It
I
happens.
so
Okay,
I
there's
just saw it, Mr. Leal. It says great stories. Any work at Sugar Hill or Capitol Records? I'll ask him as soon as he gets back. And like again, I mean, and I went through all that spiel. That's for everybody else, but for you, Mr. Leal, I actually can see your
yes, we
questions.
appreciate your questions. Thank you so much for everyone that asked questions and comments. And that's kind of the one of the fun parts about doing this live is that I know that our legends, they like a little structure sometimes, but you never know uh, exactly what we'll talk about, and it's very natural, the conversation, because based on what they're telling us, and certain things pique my interest or your interest, Miss Gigi, and then also with our guests,
Yes.
or I mean our people watching. So thank you
Yes.
so much for that. But we'll get Mr. Westbrook back on here.
Yes.
Um,
Remember to go into YouTube as well, guys, and subscribe into our YouTube channel, Giras y Desveladas, as well. You can send us stars here through the Facebook um, as well. So we can get this out to as many people as possible. It's something that we're doing just blindly out of our hearts, something that we're both very much believe in. My dad has passed. Lori's dad is still here, and there's nothing better than to honor our dads than
yeah,
to talk about their music and their genre
and part of
and
what they experienced. Very
and their
true.
experience. Yeah.
Yes, and next Friday is my dad's birthday, so we're gonna have a big party weekend next weekend. My dad's birthday is Friday.
Happy
My
birthday.
my daughter graduates from college Saturday.
Happy
Thank God,
graduation.
UTRGV, and then so we have family coming in from everywhere, and then of course Mother's Day is Sunday. So a lot going on here in my little neck of the woods. Exciting stuff.
Yes.
So Gigi, hopefully you can
Well, I'm
get a
I'm
little
gonna you know
time.
what? Let- Go ahead. I'm sorry,
Oh, no,
Lori.
no,
Jeez.
no. Friday night, I don't know what we'll do for my dad's birthday, but I'm sure it will involve barbecue, fajitas, probably beer, maybe tequila, and of course,
Ah,
music. So that in itself, I think we might just make little videos of that. Can't little fun
yeah,
memories.
that'll be cool. Lori Maldonado says, Gigi, my dad was a well-known orchestra, wasn't back in the day, those pioneers still unrecognized in an orchestra.
Yes.
Well, we'd love to hear all about it, Ms. Maldonado. I mean, that's what we're here. I think there's a generation that's missing out on. There's a gap. There's an informational
Right.
gap here that we're
Yeah.
trying to close.
And
Welcome.
that's, yeah, I'm so sorry.
ahead.
Go ahead, Gigi.
No, go ahead.
Oh, I think it's great. You mentioned the orchestra influence, because before the influence of rock and roll, the influence was the orchestra. They say when people came back from World War II, it was very much a Lawrence Welk feel that everyone was into. So even then, they were absorbing the influences that were the orchestral, and then later on, you get the rock and roll and the Beatles. And like Mr. Solis said last week, I love that he said the Bee Gees in Chicago.
Yeah.
I love the Bee Gees in Chicago. And I was like, wow, I was listening to the Bee Gees after that.
All
Anyway,
right, Mr. Westbrook. So let me just listen. I know you were worried that you weren't going to have anything to talk about, but we are nearing our 2 hours now, sir.
Goodness.
everybody says it.
I'm
Everybody
only
says,
getting started.
oh my goodness.
I
It's
know.
so funny.
And we're going to have another part 2. I guess we're going to need another part 2 or something, because we are already nearing our second hour. So we're just let's just kind of wrap this session up with how you felt that you were doing as you were creating history at Falcon Records.
And I'm so sorry to interject. Don't forget Mr. Leal's question.
Yeah.
Oh, I already did. See, Mr. Leal,
What
I
was
got
your
you,
question?
Mr. Leal. I got you.
Yes, that's why Lori is so essential to my show. Oh, great stories. He asked, did you ever work at Sugar Hill or Capitol Records?
Well, not Capitol Records, although when I would go to Nashville, I would meet with different execs from Capitol Records or all the other publishing companies or whatever. But Huey Moe was a close friend of mine. I have to tell this Freddie Fender story.
Of course.
Okay. Freddie Fender came to Falcon 6 months, maybe 8 months before Huey released Before the Next Teardrop Falls. And of course, at that time, Freddie was almost a nobody, although he had stuff a long time ago, whatever. I'd never heard of the guy. I show up at the studio and there's this guy there, introduces himself and says, so he has a fifth of wild turkey and a 6-pack of beer with him. And he says, look, I there's certain ways I like to record. So I'm just going to sit over here against the wall and you can mic up around me, but I want to be able to have my beer here and my wild turkey here. Oh, okay, whatever. And by that time, I had become a nicer person, willing to, deal with whatever they threw at me. Now, understand, I was working 7 days a week, anywhere from 12 to 16 hours a day. There were times they had 2 groups up in the lobby and on the outside rehearsing, waiting to get in after the group that was in there.
Wow.
That is incredible.
I mean, they were putting as much stuff through there while we were cutting hits. I want to talk about hits for a second.
Of course.
In every studio, whether it's LA, Nashville, New York, McAllen, Texas, Mexico City, wherever, Monterey, if a studio cuts a hit, Miami, because when the Bee Gees recorded in Miami, everybody had to record in Miami, So that's just the way it is. So everybody came to Falcon to record. Even Sonny Ozuna came, and he wasn't on Falcon's label. He came because we were cutting the hits. Everybody wants hits. So it was really a wonderful, wonderful thing. So I'm talking to Freddie. He says, "Hey man, I don't want to record this conjunto crap. I want to record some blues or some country." I said, "Well, Mr. Ramirez says that he wants conjunto." And Mr. Ramirez had made a deal with Freddie to record so many, one album, I think, or maybe two albums of conjunto songs. And so over the days of working with Freddie, he kept saying, "Come on, man, come on. I don't get into this conjunto crap. I want to sing some blues. I want to sing some country." So I went up to the office at Mr. Ramirez. Now I was talking to the old man, and then I said, "Mr. Ramirez, Freddie wants to record some blues or country." "Oh no, Pablo, no. We're not into that, And I said, "Okay, boss, let me do this. Let me record a couple of country songs to appease him, make him happy, and then we can go on and finish." Okay. They would give me anything I wanted. Okay. So went back and we recorded a couple of country tunes. Well, then several months down the road, Huey Moe, which was Freddie's manager, and Huey Moe has had many big artists. And he owned at the time Sugar Hill down in Houston. Okay. And I had sold him equipment because I started selling equipment too to other studios and designing other studios. So I had sold him some big red speakers or something. And so Before the Next Teardrop Falls comes out, major hit. I mean, worldwide hit. And the next thing you know, Huey Moe is buying Bago Records from Falcon.
Ooh.
Okay.
Wow.
Now, why in the world would he buy a record company, a whole catalog? Those two songs I recorded were owned by Falcon. and I don't know how much they got. They've never shared with me because they probably don't want to have to give me a commission. No, I wouldn't expect a commission. They were very good to me. As a matter of fact, they paid me for years after I left there. My checks kept coming. I went into the office 2 different times and said, "Hey, boss, you don't have to pay me anymore. I'm doing well on my own. I got my own businesses going." No, Paul. And they liked the security of having me make that trip once every month or 6 weeks down to the valley, walk in and say, "Hey, Mark, everything working?" "Yes, sir. Everything's fine." "Okay, get the fajitas out, get the beer. Let's have
I love that you're sharing that.
Years.
I love that you're sharing that because growing up in the valley, and anytime you looked at an album or any hits or any records, you saw that Falcon Records on it, and then the Bago, and then Freddie Fender. You're telling us all these things and wrapping it all up together where, we wouldn't know that. And you being there, I mean, maybe we might hear about it somewhere because, we hear stories from people, other legends, or grow up hearing stories, but you were there. Like, you were there making those hits. What 2 songs did he record? I'm curious to know the 2 country songs. Do you remember?
No, that's been a long time ago. But it is part of history, and
absolutely.
And I'm sure that Huey Moe would have paid anything because he didn't want Freddie releasing anything from anybody else.
Gotcha.
And they were good country songs. I don't remember if they were just copy songs or original songs.
Mm-hmm.
If they were original songs by Freddie, they would have been worth a lot more.
Yeah. So do you remember, did he record anything under Valdemar Huerta with you?
No,
Because no,
I'm sure.
which
Well,
was his real name for anybody that wasn't
yeah.
sure about that.
I think that knowing the Ramirez family, knowing Nano and Mr. Ramirez, they would have wanted to use the name Freddie Fender
Mm,
because nobody would know who Baltimore was.
Yeah.
right. Well,
And,
several, like 20 years ago or so, someone gave me a CD of Valdemar Huerta. And
Really?
honestly, I didn't know
You're
that
like, who's this?
I didn't know that it was Freddie Fender. And it's a collection of beautiful Spanish songs. Like some
what was the
very,
record company?
I don't remember. I lost it. I'm sure it's on Apple Music somewhere. I'll have to look it up because I've moved several times since then. I might have left it at Don Chilo's because they always played it at Don Chilo's during dinner. Like we would play that. We would play all different kinds of music. But I remember that's where I was when somebody gave that to me, and I had never heard that. But that's really crazy that you had that whole conversation with him. And it makes you said wild turkey and a 6-pack. I know when sometimes we've recorded stuff messing around with Mr. Oscar Garza, we all took a tequila shot before we started. So is that where everybody has their own rituals? We didn't do that at your place though, Mr. Westbrook.
As a teaser to hour number 2,
Yeah.
I ran into Freddie again many years later at Billy Bob's up in Fort Worth. And for you that don't know what Billy Bob's is, it's a real big country and western nightclub. I mean, big. It's so big it has a bull riding arena in it. They had back in the middle of the thing, facing the stage, they had a booth that they had built, and it had a 16-track console and 16-track 2-inch recorder, and all this equipment was owned by Donnie Osmond.
What?
Yeah, from Donnie and Marie.
Yes, I love Donnie and Marie.
Yeah, and he owned that equipment, and I don't know how it ended up there, but Brother John Rivers hired me. That's when I had Westbrook Audio over in Dallas. Hired me to go over to Billy Bob's every Saturday night and record whoever the top act was that week on Saturday nights.
And that's where the top acts go.
I'm sorry?
That's where the top acts go, like the country.
Yeah, that's the big place up in the Dallas Fort Worth area. And they would John would hire this radio announcer to go out to Billy Bob's and go backstage and interview the act, whoever it was. Okay. And of course I would go back there and meet whoever it was and say, hey, we're here to record you for the radio program on a country road. And so for the Mutual Radio Network. So if you need us, any special things you need us to do or whatever, let us know. So I would take one of the guys that worked for me in sales at Westbrook Audio, and he was also a mixing engineer and young guy with lots of energy. And we would go over there every Saturday and hook up the snake from that recording booth up to the snake that all the guys on the stage were using. So I'd meet all their crew and their players and the top acts too. So worked with, oh man, total big names: Johnny Cash, Willie Nelson, anybody that was ever anybody in the country music market. So I was able to work with a lot of people. By the way, the nicest person, and if any big artist ever hear this and would want to know something, and all you starting artists, be nice to the little people. Be nice to the people that are nobodies, the people that are setting up your stage, the people that are bringing you water to drink or whatever. You be nice to those people because they're just be nice.
And that is excellent advice. And coming from someone who is a little people that would bring the water and beer to everybody, thank you all for being nice. The water, beer, and food, and clean up your team.
Anyway,
Awesome advice.
I ran into Freddie. John asked me one time, he said, who should I get? I said, well, get Freddie Fender. He says, well, I don't know. I said, no, he's good. Get Freddie Fender. So a few weeks later on, Freddie was one of the ones. Okay. And so I walked backstage to see Freddie. Now, it's been many years since I'd seen Freddie. Okay. I'll tell the rest of the story in hour 2.
All right.
So is he the
Cliffhanger.
one that's the nice person that you said? Because you said someone that was really nice. Was it Freddie?
No, it was a lady. And let me think of her name. Oh, Lord. By the way, all you younger people, this is going to happen to you too, because you start not remembering names.
While you're trying to remember, let me say hi to Noe Avalos. He says, saludos from Florida. Hi, Florida. I think Eli Olivares is out there, one original from the Valley. He had a quick question also. Did Mr. Westbrook work with Los Doneños at Falcon?
I probably did.
All right. So did you remember the name of the nice person? No. That's all right. Listen, we're going to have to wrap it up, Mr. Paul Westbrook. As wonderful as this conversation has been, it is time to wrap it up. It has been such a privilege. I know Lori feels the same way. It has been such a privilege to know you. Your name is part of our households. I know yours, Lori. I know mine for many years since childhood. So it's an honor to finally know Mr. Paul Westbrook. I didn't know you. I know Lori knew you a little better. I did not. I just knew you by what my dad would say. And when my dad mentioned somebody, and my dad was a consummate professional and an ultimate musician.
Yes.
And when he heard good music or good work, he would say it. And you were one of those people that he mentioned often. So privilege to have talked to you.
I still want to record and work with you, Gigi.
We will.
With Laurie Jean. Now I want to work with you.
Awesome. Yeah.
And we got to do that pretty fast because I'm getting to be old.
Oh no, don't say that. Don't say that. My dad says things like, I'm in the fourth quarter. Hurry up.
Yes.
Hurry up. It's the fourth quarter.
Yeah, no, yeah. I recorded at Freddie Records, I recorded at Hacienda Records, and I recorded at CHR Records. So definitely I have to talk to Rick Garcia because you know we belong to Rick Garcia.
Okay, maybe Rick and I can work together. Maybe I can be co-producer or something.
There you go. Well, we've been talking.
Great engineer.
One of the show we did when we interviewed Cecilio Garza, Don Chilo, we actually sang Amor Imposible, which was recorded at Falcon Records from Los Mandrills. And so he wants us to record that song. And if you go back, we've got it on there. It's on YouTube or here on Facebook. We sang it. It's a beautiful song.
Send me the link.
I'll send you the link.
Yes.
So, and for those of you out there who are interested, also it's out there. It's the interview with Cecilio Garza, and Lori sings with her dad
Well,
also.
and Mr. Westbrook, my dad taught me that song, I guess on 13, 14 years ago. And that's kind of me and Gigi talked about that. But my dad and I, we make our own renditions of things. So it may not be, we recompose things and he'll tell me, that's not how that song goes. You're redoing the whole thing. Like you're making I'm like, okay, well then let's just do that then. But this particular song, it was such a beautiful song. And then, I didn't know the story behind it, and Gigi told me the story behind it. And so, yeah, my dad and I had done it, messing around, just with the guitar, but a completely different composition of it. I think it was a little different
Not that different.
when
Um,
he plays it. Yeah, I
so
love
we're gonna have Nano Ramirez Jr. on as well. He's scheduled. I don't have my calendar with me, but he's scheduled on a show as well to talk about Falcon Records and all that jazz. So thank you so much, Mr. Paul Westbrook. Such an honor. We're gonna keep in touch, of course.
Yes, yes.
And
And hello to Miss Rita, Miss Beautiful Rita. I remember when you first talked about her, when you first met her, and you said, I'm gonna get married, and my wife, this is my beautiful fiance, and she is just as beautiful in person as in those photos you showed us. So,
She's more beautiful inside than outside. She is just great.
wow.
and that's the most important kind of beautiful.
Mhm.
You
She
can't
loves
meet that.
Jesus.
Ah,
Oh, yeah.
important. So with that, we wrap it up. God bless you. God bless everybody watching and supporting us. Thank you so much. Take care. We'll be
Subscribe.
next.
Make sure they click on subscribe and
Click on
ring that
subscribe on
bell.
YouTube. Yeah, yeah,
Yes,
yeah, yeah.
please do
We need
that.
that.
And people
Yes.
are saying thank you for your stories and saludos and great program. And so, yes, thank you for your stories and your
God
Thank you
bless
so
attention.
much.
Love you guys.
Love
Take
you.
care.
Don't
Take
go
care.
anywhere.
Don't go away. Let me just get off the live and we'll talk in a little bit.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, everybody. Bye bye.